Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Bava Kamma daf Gimel Amud Aleph 93a1. We're going to finish the perek today, and we're going to start also the next perek, which is going to be perek Chi'i at Oziel. So we were in the Gemara where the Gemara was actually saying, we were explaining this was the 15th thing, right? So Rava comes and he tells Rabbi Mimari, what does it mean that when people come and they say, Kadavinan Zutre Legavre, right? When I was young, right, I wanted that, people should always consider me old. And when I'm old, right, kilu that, we want to be like children, meaning that we're never happy with our situation. We always want a different situation. Elmaleh says, it's a pasuk. The pasuk says, Meikar aktiv at the beginning, it's written, Vashem olech nitnem yomam, be'amud anan l'chotam adem l'ayla b'amud ha'shayil lahem. So at the beginning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu went, right, with them, in front of them, with an amud anan, with a cloud, right, in a cloud of glory, and then a cloud of a pillar of fire in the nighttime, in order to direct them. But at the end, it's written that Am Yisrael, when they were young, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed them the love, and they were zocheh that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it himself. But then later on, it was only going to be done through a malach after the egel. It wasn't done through Hashem. So therefore, obviously, there's going to be a difference, right? The next one, that's how we're starting today. Ama lerava, right? Lerava barmari. How do we know this thing that people say, right? Batar. He says like this, Batar. Mari nichse sive meshoch. What does that mean? When you're going after a bal nechasim, right? You could take ritzuot datot, which means if you're going to come and limit the bek ba'ashirim, so you're going to, it's gonna pay off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Meaning it's gonna rub off. So therefore, if you're always gonna be with rich people, hopefully it'll rub off. So Elmaleh, he tells them, it's written pasuk, v'gam lelot tzadik gimel amud aleph, v'gam lelot haolechet Avraham hayatzonu v'akar v'olim. Meaning, since Lot was going with Abraham, so therefore he also got, whether it's going to be tzon ubakar v'olim. Amar Rav Chanan. Rav Chanan comes and he says, hamoser din al chavero. If you're going to give the deen on your friend, meaning that you're going to say that a bet din shel mala should punish to your friend, he's going to be punished first. Meaning, just like by the positive, if you're going to pray for your friend, right? So therefore, you get answered first. So if you're going to give over the deen on your friend, you're going to get punished first. Shneimar says in the pasuk, "Vatomer Sarai l'Avram." Sarai comes and she tells Avram, "Hamasi alecha." Yeah, I'm upset. Are you listening? I'm upset. Yeah, Yishpot. Make sure you wake up. Yeah, Yishpot Hashem and Yuvanecha. Hashem should judge between us. So therefore, she gave over the judgment. Uchtiv, and it's written, what happened? She died earlier. Why? Because she was punished first. So it comes out that if a person comes and they give, right, the judgment, right, it says over here, she died 38 years beforehand because she was Masra Dina leneged Avraham Avinu. It's a powerful statement. Huh? I'm not sure exactly Kodem Zmana, but here it actually says the Penei Yeshua and Rosh Hashanah. It's not that simple, right? It sounds like it's a midah keneged midah because since a man is commanded on Pidyav Rivya, not a woman, so Avraham Avinu was right? Avraham Avinu was right in Avraham Avinu. He says over here was right in what he said over here, that he prayed only for himself and not for her. But it's not that simple exactly, because again, obviously there's a whole thing here. But again, this is just a little bit of what it is. But he comes and he says but he says that's only if there's going to be a din down below, which means, why are you giving it to the heaven? Why are you giving it to Bedin Shel Mala? Take care of it down here below. The fact that they're not taking care of it down here below, so that's the reason why. You understand? Take care of it down below. Thank you. Yeah. So he comes and he says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, Oy lo latzoek yoter min hanitzak. So it comes out, woe to the one that's screaming more than the one that's getting screamed at. Right? Which is the same concept, right? The exact same concept. Okay? Fine. Tanya Miyach, we also learned it in Braita. When it says in the pasuk, right? There it's mashma whether it's the tzoek or the nitzach. But rather they come and they quickly punish the one that's screaming against the one that's receiving the screaming, as if to say, from the Shemai. So therefore, again, this is all just a concept that a person has to be very, very careful not to give over his judgment to Shemaim so quickly, because that means, you understand, it's not...
So the thing is like that, there's two guys.
Says Rabbi Yitzchak, a person should never have that the kilala of a simple person should be light in their eyes. Shari Avimelech kilelet Sarah. Avimelech cursed Sarah. V'nitkayem bezara. And it was actually nitkayem in her children. Shneimar says in Pasuk, Hineu lach kesut enayim. Amar la, he comes and he says, Hoi uvechisit mimeni, velo gilit shehu yishech vegaram tela yatzar hazeh. Right? What does that mean, Hineu lach kesut enayim? He says, since he covered from me and he didn't reveal, right? Vegaram tzar, right? It should be the will that you should have children which are going to be kesuye enayim, but it actually went in her children. Tichtiv, it says in a pasuk, "Vahi ki zaken Yitzchak," and it was that when Yitzchak was zaken, vatichena enav mereot, right? That all of a sudden he wasn't able to see. So you see from here that there was a klala of Avimelech, and it was actually nitkayim in her children. It wasn't nitkayim her, it was nitkayim in her children. And there's Avimelech, Stam, a simple person. So Amar Rabbi Avu says Rabbi Avu, Leolam yadam min derfin velo min rodfin. A person should always be pursued. Another one that's always pursuing other people. Because the ones which are the birds which are the most pursued is the Tor b'nei Yonah. And the Torah says you can bring them to the Mizbeach. Meaning, from the fact that they're always the ones which are pursued because they're smaller than other birds, so therefore those are the ones which are going to be kosher to the Mizbeach. Okay? Fine. 2 dots. If you remember, we spoke about a case where a person comes and he says that he tells somebody else, cut off his hand, break his leg, all these things to himself. So Elmaleh Ravasi Beracham Rava says Ravasi Beracham Rava, what's the difference between the Reisha and the Seifa? Why is it that to do with Mammon, it does help Tanai Mefurash to exempt, but to do with Niske Gufo, it does not help. Meaning if a person comes and he tells another guy to blind him, and then the guy blinds him, he has to pay. And it doesn't help even though he came and he told him that you're going to be exempt. But to do with money, it does help. And he's going to be exempt. What's the difference? So he comes and he says, Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Reisha, if Yishenada Mochel Rashi Varim. Says the Reisha is because people will never be Mochel on Rashi Varim. So therefore, no matter what, when he said it, he wasn't thinking. When the guy comes and he says, cut off his hand, he wasn't thinking. You know that. The guy's not thinking, he says, cut off his hand. Doesn't make sense. Right? Elmaleh, he says, V'chiyadam mochel al tzaro. Right? He says, 1 second, but can a person actually be mochel on his tzar? Obviously not. He says the tzar was learned on a braita. Hakeni pitzayni amena liftor patur. He should be patur. So ishtik, right? Amar midi shmiya lecha. So he kept quiet, and afterwards he told him, what, did you hear something? Elmaleh, he says, this is what Rav Sheshet says. Rav Sheshet says, mishum pagam mishpacha. Meaning it's not only just for him, it's because of the family. It's a pagam in the mishpacha in itself, and therefore he has no reshut to be poter the mazik for a pagam in the mishpacha. Meaning the fact that he's going to be now blind is only a pagam in him, it's his entire family, and that he has no rights to exempt. So therefore, since he doesn't have no rights to exempt or to be, so that's why it doesn't help. Itmar, it was stated, Rav Oshia says, mishum pagam mishpacha, and Rava also says, mishum shenadam mochel al Rashi Varim. A person cannot be mochel on a shevarim. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, yesh hen shu kelav, yesh lav shu kehen. Sometimes a person could say yes, and really be'emet it's no. And sometimes a person could mean no, and really be'emet is yes. Usually when it's like rhetorically. Like, yes, that means no, obviously. Well, you really, yeah? You're like, nah, it all depends on how you say the yes and the no. Tanya Miyachli also learned this in Braita, right? Ikani Pitzani al mena lifotro, right? V'amalo hen, well, yeah, hari yesh hen shu kelav. Kara et kesuti al mena liftor, v'amalo lav, he says that's love, it means yes. But there says what? No? First, it means yes. So it all depends on It depends on how you say it. And that's why it's so important to always hear a person. Many times, I always say this by text, people, they actually don't they get lost because they have, for example, a text and they didn't realize if it was a question, if he was saying it like a question or not. But they don't put the question marks and exclamation marks and the commas and the periods. So you come and you read it one way, it was completely a different way. And that's all because you have to hear other person, because many times the way according to what you're hearing, so they're completely different. Okay? Fine, 2 dots. Shaberet kadi, right? Break the kad. Or karak suti is going to be chayav. So it says the Gemara, we have a contradiction. Lishmor velo leabed. Lishmor velo likroa. Lishmor, right? Velo lechalek lani. He says over here like this. Basically, when it says in the pasuk, kiteni yishareu kezukalim lishmor, we have a diuk. That the diuk is lishmor, and not that he gave it to destroy it. Or when they gave it lishmor, and not to be korea auto. Or they gave it lishmor, and not to give it to aniim. Okay, so it comes out that so means it comes out that if he actually comes and he tells them, for example, give it to aniim, and then the shomer was poshea, he was negligent, so they can't do anything to the shomer. That's what we're saying here. Because basically, when it said that you're giving it to a shomer lishmor, it has to be davka lishmor for this, but it cannot be that labed, to get rid of it, or likroa, or all these things. Because the second that he's doing it, that he tells him that it's going to be labed or likroa, so then there's no obligation lishmor anymore. That's it. He's already going to be okay. Okay? So Amar Ravuna comes and he says, it's not a question. Had de'ati liyadeh, had lo ati liyadeh. It all depends whether be'emet the chefetz came to the hands of the shomer, and then he would be permitted, or if it didn't come to the hands of the shomer. Okay? That means if he just comes and he says, right, take this object from me and take care of it, and if you want, you could tear it, and only afterwards he went and he took it. So in such a case, right, you would say that he doesn't care. Okay? Because it was after it came to his hands. Okay, that means there's going to be a difference when meaning if he already had it in his hands or he didn't have it in his hands. So Elmaleh Rabbi comes and he said, Lishmor, dati lede mashma. The word lishmor means, right, that the chefetz is already in his hands. If I give you something lishmor, it means that you already have it and you have to watch over it. So Elmaleh Rabbi says, you're right. You're right. He already has it in his hands. Vela kasher is still not a question. It all depends how it was coming to your hands. Meaning, when I came and I gave it to you, did I come and give it to you to shomer al zeh? And only once it's in your hands, I come and tell you, by the way, if you want, you could break it. Or when I told you that it was going to go into your hands from the beginning, it was going to be b'torat kriya, that you could come and take it and to tear. So once you do that, that's it. It's completely different halacha. Aranka ditztaka datan pumbedita. There was somebody, there was an anak full of money that got to pumbedita. After the Rav Yosef put it in the hands of somebody, and he was poshea, and then it was negligent in the shmirah. Atu gan veganvua, so the ganavim came and they stole it. Rav Yosef, so he went and he obligated them to pay. So Elmaleh says, "Vatani nishvu v'lo lechaklanim." Elmaleh, he says, "Anieh de pumbedita mekes kaitzehu." No, they get their money every single week. So this money is muchzak for the aniyim mesuyamim. Right? And therefore he comes and he says it's ki'ilu, every single ani gave it to him lishmor. So that's why he's going to be chayav. Meaning because since every single ani knows that every single week they have a certain stipend, so they know that this week, each one they know, this one gets $100 a week, this one gets $200 a week. So because of that, that's why it's considered as if that he actually gave it to him in such a fashion, hadran alach hachover. Tzadigim lamubet. Okay? Mishnah, new perek chi. Okay? 93b. Imagine a person comes and he steals wood and he made utensils. Semeru, right? Wood. Right? He stole wool and he made it into bigadim. You're going to pay the value during the time of the gezilah. Gazal para meuberet. If he stole a para which is actually pregnant, right? A cow, and then it gave birth. Or rachel tuna ugzazar. Or he had a sheep that needed to be sheared and then he sheared the wool. So he has to pay according to what it is at the beginning. But if he stole the para and then it became pregnant by him, Yalda, and then it gave birth, or Rachel, and then it had the shearing of the wool, right? And then he sheared the wool. Shalem kishat gzila. So that's the klal. Kol ha'gazanim yishalim kishat gzila. The general rule is you always pay at the time of the stealing. Okay, afterwards it went up in value because it got pregnant and it got this. Yeah, but that was in my hands. It wasn't okay. Amri, they said, etzim vasan kelim, wood, and they made them into kelim. In, right? You are going to come and you're going to acquire them, right? But if just shiefan, lo, you didn't acquire it, which means this case is only if you stole wood and then you made a utensil out of it. But if you stole wood and all you did was you sanded it, I think they said in English, no? You smoothened it, right? If you just smoothened it, so therefore you're not going to acquire it. Semer v'asa migidim, the same thing. Only if you stole semer and then you made clothing. Libenan, but if you just whitened the wool, no, you don't acquire it. Or meaning we have a contradiction. You do pay according to the shata gezilah. So means he comes out here that you do acquire it. Abaye says, Tana didan ktani shinuyim d'Rabbanan, right? Dehadra. Our Tana of the Mishnah is talking about a shinuyim, which is only going to be d'Rabbanan, which you're able to bring back to the original status quo. So therefore, you're going to come and you're going to be able to acquire it. Doraita, which is the tivas and kelim, right? So, but what about when we're talking about something which is already halak? And what is that? Nisarim, planks of wood. There you could bring it back to its original form. Because if you want, just take it out of the kli, right? So, or tzemen vasam begedim, the same thing. But tzemen tavui. Because basically what happened was that you actually made it in such a way that you could actually take it apart. You could take it apart. The Koshkan Shinui Deraita, Tanabara, but the other Tana was talking about Shinui Deraita, Shinui Derabana Loktani. So basically this is coming out, there's going to be a machloket. When do we say that a person actually acquires it? There's something which is called a Shinui Deraita, one of them is Shinui Derabanan. Shinui Deraita means that it can never come back to its original form. So if you took wood, right, mamash wood, and you made it into a keli, right? That's not planks that are already ready and you're coming and you're putting them in the walls, right? That technically speaking, if you want, you could just take out the wall and take out the planks, right? No. We're talking about mash, you made a utensil. So for that Shinu Deraita, which is not go back, that for sure you're going to acquire. And that was, but the other one was talking about Shinu Derabanan. And there's going to be a machloket whether you're going to acquire it or not just because of that, right? That's going to be one answer. Ravashi says, Tana Didan Shinuya Doraita. Really, our Tana is talking about Shinu Doraita, which is our Mishnah. Etzim vasan kelim. Buchni, right? But he comes and he says, we're talking about where you put the wood on a machtesh, which is basically shaifan, which is basically where you're actually like smoothing it out. Or tzemer vasan begadim lenamte, right? Which you made it into badim. Okay, which is basically you just come and you press it, right? So he says, dehainu shinui delada, which is also going to be a shinui that does not come back to its original form. That means basically, again, any type of a shinui which does not come back to any type of a change in the object which does not come back to the original form. So therefore, it's going to be a problem. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, the libun mehave, right? He says, 1 second, libun, is that considered right now a shinui? Or meaning we have a contradiction. Im lo yispik litnolo ad shetzavao. If he didn't give it to the Baal HaTzemer until he comes and he painted it, which means the Reshita Gez, he painted it, which means we know that the Reshita Gez goes to the Kohen. But what happens if the Baal HaTzemer did not have time to give it to the Kohen until he actually painted it? It's going to be patur. Okay? Libeno velo tzevao. If he colored it, if he dyed it, if he only whitened it, but he didn't give it a dye, it's going to be chayav. So Amar Abaye comes and he says, Lakash, it's some question, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbanan. You're right. This Mishnah is according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, that he says Libun is not considered a Shinui, right? And that's going to be different to the opinion of Rabbanan, that they say that means there's going to be a machloket. Is Libun considered a Shinui or not considered a Shinui? Remember, Libun is you're coming and you're whitening the wool. So the wool is more like yellowish, yeah? And you're whitening it. So that whitening, is that considered a Shinui or not a Shinui? Machloket Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. The Tanya is we learned to the Braita. Gizazo. Right? If a person comes and he's going to be gozez, he's going to shear the wool. Right? Tevao go. Then he comes and he weaves it, right? And he sews it. And mitzaref, it's not going to be mitzaref afterwards to the shiur of Reshita Gez. Right? Libeno, but if you're going to be mlaben et zeh, According to Rabbi Shimon, it's not going to be mitzaref because it's already considered a shinui. According to the Chachamim, it is mitzaref because it's not considered a shinui. So if you put everything together, you're still obligated to give the reshit hagez. Rava Kamma daf, he says, ha Rabbi Shimon. Both of them are shitat Rabbi Shimon that it is considered a shinui. It's not a question. Ha denaptse naputze. Here we're talking about that it was nipetzet tzemer, which means he separated the sibim, okay, and he removed chelkei lichluch, okay. Veha desar kesaruke. And here we're talking about that he was actually misarek the tzemer, okay, because you can actually, which means that you combed it. Because when you come and you comb it, it makes it much cleaner, and therefore you can actually see the shinui much more. Okay, that was the second answer. The third answer, okay, Rav Chia bar Avi Amar, had de chavrei chavrei, had de kavre kavruye. He comes and he says the Mishnah is talking about a libun, which is not considered a shinui. We're talking about that he was only shotef et tzemer b'mayim, and he just washed it. But here we're talking about that he was malbinetze by putting gofrit, sulfur, and other things. That means he put one of them is just stam washing in the water, and one of them you're actually coming and you're making the. So therefore, again, we have different answers on what is considered be'emet a shinui, right? Because that's the question. So it says now the Gemara, hashta yesh lomar, right? He comes and he says this, hashta yesh lomar tzeva, right? Now we're going to say tzeva for sure should be considered. According to Rabbi Shimon, it's not going to be considered shinui. But libun is considered shinui. I don't understand you. How could you tell me that if somebody is going to paint it, to dye it, it's not considered a shinui? Yeah? And this is going to be considered a shinui? How does that make sense? Okay? So he comes and he says as follows. Huh? Yeah? The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita. Okay? Gazaz rishon utzvao. So you sheared the wool one by one. And then he was tzava et tzemer, right? Immediately after the giza. Rishon utvao. Or he sheared it, and then he did tviyah. Sheared it, tviyah. Rishon vargo. So mitzaref, there's not going to be mitzaref for the shita gez. Remember, the shita gez has to have a certain measurement. So here what he was trying to do was, he did less than the measurement, but immediately did a shinui. Less than a measurement, and immediately, so since he would, that means even though at the end thing, he did many of them, but since he did it in between each one, it's not mitzaref, because each one was a separate entity in itself. Okay? Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda said the name of Shimon, Tsevao, it is mitzaref. And as you see from here, right, that what? That Tseva is going to be mitzaref. But now if you just told me that if you're going to come and you're going to whiten it, it's considered a shinui, so white Tseva is not considered a shinui. So Abai said, like, that's not a question. Har-Rabbanan, according to Rabbi Shimon, and one is Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, according to Rabbi Shimon, meaning there's going to be a machloket between what is the shita of Rabbi Shimon. Is Tseva considered a shinui or not? That's a machloket in shitat Rabbi Shimon, between Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda and Rabbanan. Okay, that's going to be the answer of Abai. Rava answers, Leolam lo pliga Rabbanan le Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Really, there's no machloket between Rabbanan, right? And Rabbanan do not argue with Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Tseva is different. Because it's whitening is much worse than dyeing.
What?
Than dyeing.
Really?
Why? Tanning. Tanning is dyeing. D-Y-E-I-N-G. Right? Not to dye physical dye. We're talking about coloring. It's called to dye.
Dye.
Yeah? So dyeing, right? Why exactly is dyeing? Because dyeing is reversible. You could actually take it off, right? He says that the whitening is not reversible. That's what he's trying to say. That's the answer of Rava. Basically, you take a soap and you go at it. So when we speak about over there, we speak to knowledge is according to everybody. We're talking about in indigo, which is like a blue, right? Which is domel tchelet of tzitzit. The lo avad that it does not come out, meaning certain colors does not come out, right, with the soap. So Amar Abai actually says, Shimon ben Yehuda bet Shammai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Shimon ben Elazar ben Shmuel, Kulu Silo, everyone holds Shinui b'mkomo omed, which means they all hold the chefetz right, that has a shinui, right, that means even if the chefetz nishtana, right, from the beginning, it's not considered a chefetz acher, and it does not go out, right, of the baalim harishonim, which means that according to all these shitot, look how many you had Shimon Yehuda, Bet Shammai, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Shimon ben Elazar, Shmuel, they all hold, no, even if you are mishaneh, it's still in the owner's possessions, not because you made a shinui do you acquire it. Okay, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda was what we just said. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda was what we just said, that if you went and you took the sheep and you sheared it one by one and you colored it, it still needs taref for the sheet guess. So you see from here that the shinui of the it doesn't matter, right? The second one. Yeah, Bet Shammai, what is Bet Shammai? Because now we're going to try to look at each one. Bet Shammai is, we learned to the right, Natalo Chitim Betnena. Imagine a person came and gave Chitim for Etnan Zona. He wanted to go with the Zona. So what did he give her? He gave her wheat, right? Nowadays everything's money, but in the old days it used to be food. So he gave her wheat. So that's called the Etnan Zona.
That's they used to do.
Yeah, used to give, so he says, he gave her wheat. Yeah, Vasan Solet. And she made it into flour. Or zaitin, give her olives, and he made it into oil. Anavim, grapes, and he made it into wine. Tani Chada, one Braita says that it's still a sur to bring it on the Mizbeach, because it's still considered Etzanan Zonah. That means even though you made a shinui, it's still in Etzanan Zonah. Tani Dech Mutar. From Rav Yosef, says of Yosef, right? Tani Gurion said, Tzadidal Adamudal from the top, the Miasporak, the Bet Shammai are the ones that are asuri. So you see from here that if Bet Shammai still say that it's a sur, that means even though he gave her one object, and she went and she changed it, whether it was the olives and then she changed it to the oil, whether it's the wheat and she gave it into the flour, whether in all these cases, asur to bring it on his back. Why? It's still considered. It means even though you did a shinui, it's still considered that it's in the reshut of the baalim, and therefore it's still considered an etzanan zonah. We continue. Obviously, we're going to go back, one by one to analyze why do they say that even though there is a shinui, it still belongs to the original.